Madam Speaker, even as the JDF has worked tirelessly in the field, the Jamaica Constabulary Force has executed its mandate to maintain public order and protect infrastructure. More than 12,000 police officers were mobilized across all divisions before the storm's arrival, with incident command centers activated and integrated into the national and parish emergency operations. Going forward, the JCF immediately transitioned to securing communities, protecting hospitals, water facilities, Petrojam and our airports, and escorting relief supplies into affected zones. I'm pleased to report that due to early planning, strong community cooperation, and visible police presence, we have had no major looting or disorder incident to date. Madam Speaker, I am aware that there are persons calling for the implementation of emergency measures, states of public emergency or curfews. Madam Speaker, these are being considered, but we are very sensitive to the current situation, and we do not want to impose further hardship on persons by imposing a security measure. At some point, however, when we have established, as we are now doing, the hub and spoke for a supply chain operation to ensure that there is a consistent flow of relief into communities, that will have to be protected. And therefore, we will have to put special measures around the routes that have to be traveled and protecting the areas where they are stored and distributed. As well as, Madam Speaker, we have to consider the availability of the human resources. And so there are areas that are sensitive that we will have to man and have regular foot patrols and the like. And therefore, it may become necessary in moderating that to have curfews and other measures put in place. But we are not at that point just yet. But these things are being planned out so that the security operations don't come into conflict with the humanitarian situation that currently exists. Madam Speaker, the eyes of the world have been on Jamaica as we confronted this ordeal, and the outpouring of solidarity has been extraordinary and deeply moving. The generosity shown to us reflects Jamaica's high standing and goodwill on the global stage. Even before Hurricane Melissa's landfall, messages of support and offers of assistance came from every region of the world. Since then, our relief efforts have been fortified by early and tangible aid from bilateral partners, regional and international organizations, non-governmental organizations, and the Jamaican diaspora. We are especially grateful for the outreach of His Majesty the King, the United Nations Secretary General, and many other heads of government who have conveyed their solidarity with Jamaica. We extend heartfelt thanks to our CARICOM brothers and sisters and regional agencies such as SEDIMA, CARFA, and the Caribbean Development Bank for their immediate engagement. Our bilateral partners from Belgium, Canada, Colombia, El Salvador, Venezuela, the European Union, the Dominican Republic, France, Germany, Luxembourg, India, Mexico, the Netherlands, Peru, Spain, the United Kingdom, the United States. A list that is, I have not exhausted. China, Japan, they've all committed support. And, Madam Speaker, what we have to do, in addition to the NGOs, which I haven't even mentioned, there are so many of them, but permit me to say the World Central Kitchen, Doctors Without Borders, Global Empowerment Mission, we call them GEM, Direct Relief, Samaritans First, and of course our own food for the poor. Madam Speaker, on our support jamaica.gov.jm, which was built in record time by the Amber Group, which is the central hub for donations to Jamaica from the diaspora and the world. We have so far raised 170 million Jamaican dollars in contributions on that platform. And I encourage Jamaicans and our friends all over the world to give. Support jamaica.gov.jm. All contributions go centrally to UPPIM, which is the government's official disaster management agency. Madam Speaker, I wish to make some important announcements as to how we are going to be managing the disaster. Madam Speaker, the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, UPPIM, is the central agency for the government's disaster response. They work with all the critical agencies across government, the private sector, international aid agencies, and multiple governments. It is, however, clear that the response to Hurricane Melissa will require significant logistics experience. It will also require significant coordination. The Jamaica Defense Force is currently assisting with the logistics support to both UPPIM and the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, especially given the fact that many communities are situated in difficult terrain and several have been marooned. Given the nature of the response needed for the current relief effort and the coming reconstruction effort, it is important that UPPIM and the JDF have even greater levels of collaboration. As such, effective immediately, the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, UPPIM, is reassigned to the Office of the Prime Minister to strengthen logistical collaboration with the Jamaica Defense Force. Madam Speaker, the Jamaica Defense Force is already under the Office of the Prime Minister. Madam Speaker, this move will ensure that the relief effort is well coordinated and coordinated across government. The best place to achieve that, given the nature of the crisis and the speed with which we want the recovery, is for it to be centrally positioned in the Office of the Prime Minister, which is what the Office of the Prime Minister does. It coordinates all the entities. This realignment establishes virtually a single point for emergency logistics and further tightens coordination with relief partners. This is about speed, Madam Speaker. The new arrangement will accelerate the distribution of relief supplies in the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa, better serve the most affected communities, and restore normalcy as quickly as possible. Madam Speaker, from a strategic perspective, and it is important that this be said, I have just listed national response and NGO response. One of the things we don't want to happen is any fumbling. So logistics and coordination is absolutely important. And what we will create, Madam Speaker, is a plug-and-play system. Government can't do it all. We are the first to recognize that. We don't have enough helicopters. We don't have enough social workers. We don't have enough engineers. We don't have enough doctors. But what we want is a coordinated system where all of the goodwill that comes, whilst we get that benefit, but we must get one other thing from that, and that is synergy. And you can only get synergy where the sum of the parts are greater than the whole, when you have coordination. And that is the one thing that this administration has been good at in the management of crises and disasters. So we are going to create that plug-and-play operation to take advantage of the goodwill. At the end of the day, the people who are giving to Jamaica must say it was worth giving and I will give more. At the end of the day, they must say I am satisfied that my efforts achieved something and I can see it visibly because it was not interfered with by bureaucracy, lack of coordination, territorialism, or corruption. So we are going to make sure that we display to the world a first-class relief and recovery and rebuilding operation. Madam Speaker, the passage of Hurricane Melissa has left debris, disruption, and dislocation in communities across the island. To accelerate recovery and restore order, the government will launch a national cleanup week. The Minister of Local Government already explained what that will be, but it will be the mobilization of the NSWMA, the NWA, and other entities that have capacity with the removal of debris. Now, it may very well be a cleanup month based upon the level of debris that has to be moved. In this effort, the members of Parliament will be called upon to play a critical role. There is a sense, Madam Speaker, that I've heard being bandied about that some members of Parliament were not integrated into the operations, or that there was some kind of favoritism where some constituencies got and others didn't get. Madam Speaker, let me stand here and say that there was never any intention or action on this government designed to marginalize, discriminate, isolate, alienate any member of Parliament. And we must dismiss out of hand any argument that would seek to divide this country politically when it comes to the distribution of aid. As far as I'm concerned, every Jamaican is entitled to the aid that comes in and to the spending of the government. There will be no politicization of aid. It never happened in COVID, it never happened in Beryl, and it will not happen. Madam Speaker, I can point out to you that the member from Eastern Westmoreland made his public comments. I saw them. I reached out to the leader of the opposition. I recognized your pain in what you said. I saw your public comments. I recognized the pain in what you said, and I asked the member from Southeast Clarendon, the Minister of Labour and Social Security, to reach out to you. It is only a matter of logistics why I was not able to land in Darliston or in White House. My friend, if the helicopters could have landed me there, I would have landed there, and I would have been by your side if I could find you. There was no attempt whatsoever. And the suffering of Jamaicans in your constituency, the suffering of Jamaicans in the constituency of North West St. Elizabeth is of concern. There are constituencies over here that we have not reached. Southern Trelawney, we haven't reached. Northwestern St. Elizabeth, we haven't reached. So all I'm saying, Madam Speaker, and to Jamaica, I must stand up firmly and close the door on any attempt to politicize aid in Jamaica. In the cleanup, where we are going to need the MPs to be active We're going to need the MPs to be active in mobilization, because we won't have enough people to send into communities to clean up. It will have to be the communities, leader of the opposition, that do the cleanup. You have to mobilize the people. But it is also an opportunity for communities that have not had a chance to earn anything. We're going to try to put together a little stipend. Let me say it's a little stipend, it's not a pay. We will provide, colleagues, we will provide a stipend to assist the restart of economic activity through the cleanup. It's a small stipend. They will be able to go to the shop if shops are open. They'll get a little cash in hand to restart. That's the objective. But it does require, however, value for money. And that is why we're going to need the MPs there to ensure that we get the value for money. And I think that is only fair. The program is being developed. We will have to budget it, but you can start to prepare for that program. The minister very shortly will come and announce how that program will operate. But we really need to move the debris, because it's a health hazard as well as an economic obstacle in many instances. In terms of housing support, Madam Speaker, across the island, our first priority has been to deliver food, water, and medical support to every affected community. But we know that beyond these essentials, the greatest need is now shelter. Too many of our brothers and sisters have lost the very roofs over their heads. To address this urgent need, I am announcing a building support program for households in the most affected parishes as follows, and this will be an MP-driven program again. St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Manchester, Hanover, St. James, Trelawney. $10 million will be allocated to each constituency in those parishes. You know, there was a debate in this House about whether or not any distribution to MPs should be done on a constituency basis equally. And I am of the view that every seat is equal. But in a disaster, that cannot hold. In a disaster, that cannot hold. In a disaster, that cannot hold. And I hope that MPs who were not as badly affected will not put pressure on me to make increased allocation. And so 10 million to the affected constituencies. Let me repeat: St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Manchester, Hanover, St. James, Trelawney. For St. Anne, Manchester, and Clarendon, $5 million will be allocated to each constituency. For St. Anne, Manchester. Oh, sorry. Oh, thank you for it. Thank you for reminding me. No, it's in there. It's there. Unless they made an error correcting it. But Manchester really should be the 5. I will resolve it. No, there might very well be an error in it. But yes, no. I mean that Manchester really should be 5. But let me resolve it. You're really listening. I appreciate that. All right. I will resolve it. Forgive. There's an error, obviously, in the speech. I will resolve it. I will resolve it. And for the other constituencies, $3 million per constituency. I think it's a fair distribution. based upon everything that we have to go through. The letters, we will send the letters out, and I will resolve the issue with Manchester. Madam Speaker, in addition to this, the National Housing Trust has activated a comprehensive package of support measures to help its contributors and mortgagors recover from the devastation caused by Hurricane Melissa. First, I wish to remind the public that all NHT mortgagors are insured under the Trust's House Owners Comprehensive Policy, which covers damage from hurricanes, storms, floods, fire, and other perils. The NHT has already mobilized its branches island-wide to help mortgagors prepare and process their insurance claims quickly and efficiently. Second, recognizing that many families will need time to prioritize home repairs, the NHT will grant an automatic 6 months moratorium on mortgage payments for mortgagors in the worst affected parishes: St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Hanover, Trelawney, St. James, Manchester, and St. Anne. This measure will assist some 20,000 homeowners. For all other parishes, the NHT will continue to consider individual moratorium applications for those who have lost income or face special hardships. Third, the Trust will introduce a special home improvement loan of up to $3.5 million at an interest rate of 2%, available to both existing mortgagors and contributors who need to repair or rebuild their homes as a result of the. Finally, to further ease burdens, the NHT will provide a special grant of up to $500,000 to contributors to repair damage to their homes for those who the NHT will provide a special grant of up to $500,000 to contributors to repair damage to their homes or those of immediate family members. So we have kind of extended it a little bit. Grants will be awarded based on demonstrated need and the level of impact. So this is an assessment-based grant. Madam Speaker, we're also working with our international partners and the private sector to identify housing solutions, as I said before, that can be rapidly deployed at scale across most parishes. And as I said before, Minister Montague is working on that. There are some really viable, pre-built, prefabricated housing solutions. They may not be block and steel, but they are very durable and can be rapidly deployed as shelter solutions. Madam Speaker, in addition to the $1.5 million that had already been allocated to each constituency before the hurricane, which was for emergency relief, food, medicine, tarps, and so forth, I'm announcing an additional $1.5 million, which the leader of the opposition already announced it for me yesterday. The nation should know that we talk. And it looks like I'm telling him too much because he's announcing the things before I... But the leader of the opposition correctly got that one. So there will be another 1.5 million for MPs to use for the emergency response. But this one would be now mostly focused on food, medicine. Now, Madam Speaker, to speed the flow of humanitarian goods, the government had approached customs. Madam Speaker, to speed the flow of humanitarian goods, the government had approved customs duty and GCT exemption for the importation of relief supplies for one month, expiring November 28th. Recognizing that recovery efforts are ongoing and will extend beyond this 1 month period, we will extend this relief period by a further month to the end of December 2025. This measure will ensure that every shipment of relief supplies can reach our people quickly, efficiently, and without additional financial burden. In addition to the eligible items already announced by the Jamaica Customs, and in consideration of the extent of the damage to the electricity grid in the most affected parishes and projected timelines for complete restoration, I am announcing that persons will be allowed to import Starlink equipment and other such equipment, inverters, and solar power equipment, including panels and batteries, free of custom duty and GST. Madam Speaker, this is in an attempt to get power and communication back into the communities that really need it. That really need it. Now, I know others will take advantage of it, but I appeal to every Jamaican. If you can buy 2 Starlinks and send one to a family or a community, do it. If you can buy solar batteries and solar panels and give it to a community or to a household in the affected parts of Jamaica, please do it. I will look into that because they are already giving a loan. But I know that when we give up these revenues, others will benefit from it who don't really need it. So I've asked Jamaicans to use your conscience. Ensure that the other half of Jamaica that is suffering now benefit from this relief. Madam Speaker, while the needs across our nation are indeed great, we must also remain judicious and disciplined in the use of public funds. So, Leader of the Opposition, I couldn't give $50 million just so. Because, Madam Speaker, we have the bill coming from health. We have the bill coming for cleaning. We have the bill coming for schools. We have the bills coming for JDF and JCF. We have the bill coming for agriculture, for tourism, for water, not to mention the bill for roads. So, Leader of the Opposition, as I say, it sounds good, but it's wishful thinking. We couldn't do it. And the truth is, Leader of the Opposition, we may very well over a period of time do it. But at this present time, we have to literally be very careful with how we spend. So the truth is, Leader of the Opposition, as we speak, we see that there are other weather systems forming. We don't know. So we just have to be very careful with the resources that we have. And that's why I give the assurance that what we have will be fairly shared for every Jamaican. I want to announce 2 other things. In the COVID pandemic, we established an oversight committee of Parliament to review the work of the Ministry of Health in its operations. We will establish a similar oversight committee of Parliament to review the distribution, welfare, relief operations. I've given a direction to the House Leader to speak with the opposition leader of opposition business to establish that committee, the terms and how it will work. Madam Speaker, it is in the interest of the government to have the highest level of transparency in what we do. There is no victory for JLP communities to have food and PMP communities not. There is no victory, or vice versa. None whatsoever. And therefore, we will put in place every measure to ensure that whatever is given to us, and whatever we spend from our budget, fairly done, everybody can see it, and everyone benefits. So as soon as we meet again by the next Parliament, that committee should be in place, a special joint select committee possibly, that will look at the operations. All right? Madam Speaker, in a time of crisis, every Jamaican wants to participate. One of the greatest challenges you face in a time of crisis is to organize goodwill. It is, a leader of the opposition, it is a real challenge to organize goodwill. Because there are some people who want to come and go on their own. There are some people who are saying, tell me what to do. And there are some who will tell you what to do. And it can become very confusing, bearing in mind that government operates by law and a particular structure. And it is very difficult to get people who have to operate by law to operate outside of that, meaning that you could have people with goodwill coming and say, do that, do this, but the agent who has the legal responsibility say, I can't take an instruction from you, or I have to see something in writing, or it has to go through a process. And so I have had to be spending my time in structuring the cabinet, in structuring how our permanent secretaries and others in government operate, to bear in mind that whilst we have the legal framework, there is an emergency, and therefore we have to operate with more speed and alacrity because there is human suffering that we are trying to minimize. That in itself is a task that the public will never see and probably will not understand. But that is why you have government. That is government business. Government must deal with that. And that is what I have been doing. And yes, we recognize the calls that have been made about establishing that committee or putting that. Of course we know that. We have never operated outside of that framework. We should, however, recognize that the history of our country is that the government does not stand on its own. Never has. Constitutionally, we are probably the only country where the leader of the opposition is entrenched in the Constitution. That it means that I can't go off on my own as Prime Minister. We'll take a ride together. Yeah. But it is the nature of our democracy. Our churches play a fundamental role in governance. So to our private sector. The question is now, how do you bring all of that together in a framework that satisfies everyone's purpose for participating, but at the same time delivers the best result for the people? That takes a little time to work out. We have people who have international reach, international influence, people in high offices all over the world. We have to put in place a structure that, so if they were to use their office, it's meaningful. They don't meet upon red tape and bureaucracy and then get frustrated and say, I can't bother with Jamaica. So before I pull people in, I have to make sure that when they come in, there is something meaningful for them to do. And we have been building that out. So I've had a discussion with Prime Minister Pattison and Prime Minister Golding. Yes, they are former Prime Ministers, but I always refer to them as Prime Ministers, because that is the respect I pay to them. So I've had a discussion with them, and they are eager to help. But we have to find the right mechanism as to how they can give support. And we are in dialogue as to how that could happen. There are other Jamaicans in high offices all over the world calling me up, I want to help, I want to help. We are working out how that can be. Now, in the phase that we are, which is the relief phase, there's not so much to do other than to make sure the logistics work. Because in the relief phase, what you need is that aid comes in, it moves to a storage area which is central, you record it, which is what ODPEM does, and then the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, the Ministry of Local Government say, hey, here are the communities, here are the people, and the JDF works out the logistics for movement, where private sector vehicles and other vehicles and trucks and whatever can assist in moving them to the hub in the region, and then they are broken down into spokes into various communities. And that is what we are trying to establish now, because that supply chain operation has to stand up for at least 2 months. And then, of course, Parliament has to have oversight on it. Why is this community getting and not that community? Hey, you forgot that community. Hey, you should put some more. That's what the oversight committee will do. And that's how that relief I'm expecting will operate. But we will have to immediately, almost in parallel, transition to recovery, where we have to answer difficult questions. Should Black River be where it is? How do we build a resilient town in Black River? What are we going to do with Falmouth? Precisely. What are we going to do with the hospitals? Should we rebuild these hospitals with zinc roofs? And schools? All of these are questions that we have to work out. And there are political issues involved. And so it really does need that kind of senior experienced politicians, statesmen who have been in the system long, who can help that conversation along in order to make these massive changes that are needed to make Jamaica resilient. So as we get into those discussions, you will see the importance of having persons like our statesmen, people of influence and high regard in the society, guiding debate, convening, and giving support. And that is being structured as we speak. This is a crisis, Madam Speaker. And it is one thing that we must never do, is waste a crisis. The other word for crisis is opportunity. And this is an opportunity, Madam Speaker, to make Jamaica stronger. So as I close, Madam Speaker, I want to thank all Jamaicans who have participated in the national effort to ensure that we are recovering, that our brothers and sisters in the other half of the island that was struck, that they are getting relief. It is not perfect. I'm certain that as I speak, there are communities now that have not yet been reached, that there may very well be bodies that have not yet been collected. I'm certain that there is a child that is hungry as I speak. But as I speak, I know, Madam Speaker, that the systems are being rapidly put in place to ensure that that human suffering comes to an end very quickly. And I know that with unity, togetherness, genuine unity and togetherness, Jamaica will recover and recover stronger. Madam Speaker, there is the National Partnership Council. Again, has become a feature of our government. I intend to call the Partnership Council either this week or early next week, depending on diaries and availability. And in that, under that umbrella, we will have the churches and all the other civic organizations to have this discussion around national unity for recovery. And it can't only be a discussion. There has to be commitment to unity. And as I stand here, Madam Speaker, I am committed to a unified approach to the recovery. So, Madam Speaker, I want to thank the House and thank listeners and thank Jamaicans for paying attention to this presentation. God bless Jamaica.
Responding will be the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank the Prime Minister for his presentation today. It covered a great deal of ground and provided useful information as to how we as members of Parliament can expect to operate in the near future, and also the longer-term approach that the government wishes to take in grappling with this catastrophic tragedy that has befallen our nation. I want to also take this opportunity to express my heartfelt condolences to the families and loved ones of all who have perished in this terrible catastrophe, whether in the storm itself or in the aftermath, and to express my sympathies to the thousands of Jamaicans whose lives have been severely disrupted by the impact of this cataclysmic hurricane. Madam Speaker, in this House are many MPs who have been living among the people who are going through this suffering. And there's no doubt that it has been a traumatic and emotional experience for them. I hope that this afternoon you will allow them an opportunity to speak to what they've seen and what their thoughts and feelings are about it, because I think it's very important that they get that opportunity. Many of them have come from far to be here today, and I hope you will indulge them with that. Madam Speaker, we are fortunate, I think, that Kingston and St. Andrew was largely spared from the devastation of this hurricane. It has enabled the government to function. It has enabled Parliament to meet in normal conditions. And it shows the critical importance of being able to function as a government and as political representatives in the aftermath of an event such as this. One can't really imagine how we would be responding were the path of that hurricane to have been one which had visited that kind of destruction on the decision-making nerve center of the country. And it's something we have to bear in mind as we plan for the future. Madam Speaker, I look forward to hearing from the Minister of Finance in due course, hopefully soon, on the financial implications of what has happened, on the layered financing structure that is in place for dealing with natural disasters in Jamaica. We know that the agricultural sector has suffered an immense hit. Farmers have suffered huge losses. And of course, in that regard, it is not limited to just the West. I know that there are farmers in many parts of Jamaica which have suffered major hits, Minister. I'm sure you would agree. And so in how we design relief, we have to take that into account. Although the West is devastated and requires utmost care and attention and sympathy and resources and coordination, as you have said, there are many other parts of Jamaica that have also suffered significant damage and losses. And that has to be taken into account as well. I think everyone in this House must be extremely concerned about the impact of the hurricane on our students. Many schools have been very badly hit, and unfortunately, in those areas, that has also come with the failing of the electricity supply system and internet connectivity. So the option which existed in COVID, where one could rapidly try to transition to online learning and so on, is not readily available as a solution at this time. This means that we have to have a very creative and flexible approach to bringing students back into the education system to minimize learning loss, taking into account the need to do so safely, and also taking into account the psychological impact that this hurricane has had on them, and indeed their teachers, principals, and everyone else involved in the education system. And we look forward to hearing more of that in due course. Madam Speaker, right now, there are tens of thousands, one doesn't know the number.
House Leader, the member's time for speaking has expired.
Madam Speaker, I ask that the standing orders be suspended to allow the Leader of the Opposition to complete his presentation.
Thank you, House Leader. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate that indulgence. I think that's a good start. I hope, as I've said, similar indulgences will be afforded my colleagues when their time comes to respond to the Prime Minister's statement. Where I was going, Madam Speaker, I was making the point that as we speak, tens of thousands, an untold number really, of our Jamaican people are living in conditions which are unbearable. Many have lost homes. Many have lost all their belongings. Many are in communities which are cut off. Many are struggling to find food. Water is a big problem because the water supply systems have been impacted by the lack of electricity, the turbidity, and other issues. So we must move rapidly to address that crisis. The provision of shelter and the longer-term solutions to the rebuilding of homes or the establishment of new solutions, that will require planning and careful thought. And I endorse the view that we cannot just do what we've done before, because we are in a new era. We're in an era where the Caribbean Sea is warming, and it has several negative effects. And one of those effects is that the storms that are emerging in the season are stronger, and they're also moving and in ways which we weren't accustomed to before. So we can expect, as the Prime Minister said, that we will have fairly frequent situations which we have to address, and we must be more resilient, and that requires serious thought as to how we rebuild and where we rebuild. But in the immediate term, you have little children, you have the elderly, you have pregnant mothers, you have persons with disabilities who are catching at a friend's house or a relative's house. Some of them are just under a makeshift piece of tarpaulin strung up over some structure or other, and they are at risk. The public health aspect of this, the Prime Minister made reference to it. I think it's a very serious issue. There is massive settlement of water in large parts of St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland, and no doubt other parishes. St. Anne, rivers broke their banks. Underground water is behaving in unusual ways, and they see, when you pass through, you see numerous dead animals, often in those ponded waters. This presents a serious public health risk, and we have to address that very carefully. There is also a major public health risk from people with chronic diseases who need medications which need to be kept in cool conditions, refrigerated conditions, who don't have access to refrigerated conditions for medication. There's a huge risk that those persons will suffer negative health consequences from not being able to maintain their normal course of treatment for their conditions. We have to address that. So in the hub and spoke model which we're trying to build out, that needs to be taken into account fully so that it can be a delivery of health care to people in communities who are currently not getting it. And I'm sure others will speak to that in greater detail. Prime Minister, I have some concerns, and you've heard my recommendation, and I'm glad you're giving it thought, and I'm glad you're listening to what we're saying so carefully, and listening to others as well. That's a good thing. I too want to endorse, as I have been, the importance of us as leaders in this society being united in the response to this terrible calamity. Communities have supporters of both sides who have been impacted by this thing. We are Jamaicans, and we love each other, we love our nation, and we must approach dealing with this with mutual respect, care, and love. And I can assure you, Prime Minister, that we genuinely seek to be part of the solution to help Jamaica get through this. You can count on us cooperating and playing a constructive role to the extent we are afforded the opportunity to do so. And I hope that in the design of the overall mechanism for charting the course forward, for dealing with the rollout of the recovery and reconstruction, that the need for unity, the confidence that will come when people at home and abroad see a united mechanism, a mechanism built on that principle, being the way in which it is done. I think that there's a lot to be said for that, and that's why I made the recommendation that I have. One of the concerns I have is currently the command structure is not well understood, if there is one. And I have had to be trying to identify points of entry into the disaster response mechanisms that have been established in order to provide information, vital information, that those who are handling the response need to know in order to respond and deal with these situations quickly. And we need to have clear lines of communication into the chain of command for the different aspects of what is manifesting itself now, so that we know who to approach and how to deal with that. It cannot be ad hoc. It cannot be totally informal. It must be transparent. It must be clear what it is. And there must be accountability for how the resources which are going to be deployed are deployed, so that the people providing those resources, especially persons who are doing it out of the kindness or generosity of their heart and spirit, feel that the sacrifice they are making on behalf of the Jamaican people are sacrifices that were well worth making, and they feel that their sacrifices have been treated with the respect that is due to it, by ensuring that it is used for the desired purpose and for no other purpose. And in that governance oversight mechanism isn't clear to me at the moment, and I think it's very important that it become clear and that it be consistent with the principle of inclusion and unity that you have spoken to in your address. Prime Minister, the impact on the economy will be profound. The tourism sector has taken a heavy hit. Many hotel assets have suffered damage in various degrees of severity. Some have been very badly hit, some have been moderately hit, some have got off relatively lightly, and we're glad for that. We know that agriculture is going to be, has been decimated, and this will impact the price of foods, and this will impact the availability of foods. And we need to address food security issues quickly so that our people do not suffer in this time. There will be displacement of employment. How we're going to respond to that, that remains to be seen. During COVID, funding was provided to hotels that were shut down to enable employment to continue for a period of time. I don't know whether that mechanism will be considered again or whether there will be a massive public works program to absorb and labor and provide people with opportunities to earn something during the period of recovery. But these things are very important, and we look forward to hearing them and even participating in their development if we're allowed to do so. Madam Speaker, equity is critical at this time. People are on edge, people are angry, people are afraid, and if they feel that the way in which the relief effort is being deployed on the ground is not consistent with the way in which it is being articulated in Parliament and elsewhere, it will cause problems. I have some concerns. I am not going to raise them here today. I'm going to speak because they're very specific issues, but I'm going to talk to the persons who I think can address them. But the point I want to make, Prime Minister, is that you have given a commitment here today that nobody should suffer any disadvantage because of anything to do with political affiliation or indeed who they are and where they are. The issue is need and the response to the need. And everybody should be treated proportionately in accordance with the extent of their need. And I would ask every member of this House, every MP who's going to have responsibility for allocations that are being provided to help people, to approach it in that way and to ensure that it's based on need and it's not based on whether the person vote for this one or that one. That is not relevant now. What matters now is helping our people to get back on their feet, whether they're Labourite or PNP or no P at all. Prime Minister, I agree with the extension of the exemption from customs duty for an additional month to facilitate the tremendous goodwill towards Jamaica being actualized in tangible demonstrations of things coming into the country to help our people. 30 days would have been unduly short given the time it takes to get the logistics of those things worked through. An additional month is helpful, and I'm sure you will take that into account and under advisement and watch it as things go along. But I do agree with that, and in fact I had suggested it as well, so I'm glad we're seeing it. The National Week of the Cleanup Week, like the idea, I think it will help us all pull together. One thing I would say in the design of it, already there are people in my constituency, for example, I'm sure I'm not the only one, who want to go and help in the areas where they're the most need. And I would love if in the National Cleanup Week, we're all going to get some allocation for that. But to the extent that our cleanup needs are not nearly at the scale of some other areas, if we could lend a hand in other communities or constituencies where there's a real need, I think that would be a very therapeutic and appropriate way of us all pitching in this time. I will. Them go alert. So, Prime Minister, I don't want to speak for long because I know others need to have an opportunity to speak today. And as I've said before, I hope they'll be afforded that opportunity. There's a lot of pain in the land, a lot of angst, and we as human beings who care about our constituents, who are elected to represent and want to make their lives better, faced with the suffering that is there on the ground, it is having a serious impact. on everybody, including us. And I think being able to come here and speak to those issues, express our concerns, and so on, is a very important thing. And I now will yield to allow others to make their own contributions today. I thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Leader of the Opposition.